emergency for the first time in about
This is Jim, and
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus. You have accessed entry 1136.PS1848, certificate number 26161. Sergeant Stubby.
Now, we don't know what order future listeners will be finding these records.
Alphabetical. Almost certainly.
Alphabetical. Well, if it's alphabetical or if it's chronological, maybe they'll be like, vinyl nerds that have to listen to all the records in order. Or
they'll put all their books on the shelf by color.
We should do different colors so we can,
Or maybe the language of the future will all be written in Cyrillic, so alphabetical will be very confusing for them.
We have, it's a thing in our day where people will want to read all the books of an author in order, or
right.
So chronological is a common. So if they use that order, then they will have already heard the omnibus entry about. You're gonna have to help me here. Private the Polish Bear.
Wojciech.
Did it have a T in it?
No, but that doesn't mean I won't put a T in it.
Yeah. Bears can't sue.
It's private. We always have a problem with the Polish names because it does have a T. Wojciech.
I don't know if they will. It's a Wojciech. William Shatner's Tech War was named it's short for Wojciech War.
Wojciech War.
It's all about the bears of, was it the Second World War?
Second World War. Wojciech actually had quite an illustrious career because the Polish army became an expatriate army after Poland was invaded. So Wojciech made the grand tour. Ended up in England.
You just got troops of Poles running through Persia and and Wales.
Italy. Yeah.
Anzio. From my memory of Wojciech's antics, he was never a great soldier. His the descriptions, he was an amazing companion and mascot for the Polish 33rd Screen Door Submarine Company or whatever it was.
Right.
But there were no accounts of his actual battlefield accomplishments.
Well, let me give you a little anecdote, Ken, from my personal life. If this show, do you think this show could accommodate it?
I don't know. We try to stick to factual historical material.
Well, this I think may be illustrative. I was on the rugby team for Gonzaga University for a couple of years. When I joined the rugby team, I had never seen rugby played. And when I left the rugby team, I still did not understand how the game was played at all. I was a prop, a second row, which meant my job was to just be muscle.
But surely in an ideal situation, even those people would know the rules of the game of rugby.
Yes, and I very frequently would be somewhere on the pitch and would come in contact with the ball and would kind of not even know which direction to turn.
You're like a 5-year-old playing league soccer, youth soccer for the first time.
Yeah, right. I was the
I hope the ball doesn't come this way.
Because the thing is, in rugby, a lot of the time you get the ball, but you turn with your back to the goal in order to establish a new line of scrimmage, and then everybody gloms onto you. There's a big scrum or a big a pig pile, and then you hand the ball out to your own teammates to begin a new assault.
I like to imagine you in the scrum being like, hey guys, what's going on?
What do I do now?
What should we do?
And my teammates were very frustrated with me. It was a Catholic school, and a lot of them understood rugby because it's part of the Catholic rites.
Is that true? I had no idea.
No, I'm not sure either.
Unofficial eighth sacrament.
But the thing about going on tour and playing other rugby teams in the Northwest, Missoula had a team that was really a kind of legendary.
The famous Montana rugby.
Yeah, well, again, a lot of Catholics in Montana. Bellingham also had a great team. Down in Oregon, they had good teams. But part of the Grand Tour is that after the rugby game, there's almost always a drinking contest.
It's not surprising at all to me.
It's part of the...
They are Catholic.
Yeah, it's part of the ritual of the whole experience. And although I was useless on the field, except as a tall, broad person, to just kind of fill the field with meat...
Decoy.
During the drinking contest, I was an incredible asset to the team.
It's like the biathlon. They're
Right.
shooting and skiing.
And so after the game, although I was not just ridiculed, but scorned by my own teammates, then we'd get to the drinking establishment and they would push me to the fore because I could.
This is finally your event.
I could just put pitchers down one after the other. And I feel like Wojtek, although he was not like perhaps a shooter,
Wouldn't that be great though if he were a sniper?
Yeah.
Polish sniper.
He definitely, I think, carried munitions, but part of being a soldier is smoking and drinking. And I think Private Wojtek was smoked a lot of cigarettes.
You think he's a good card player?
Yeah, I bet he was, he might not have been good on the battlefield, but he was great for intent morale.
At the request of a contemporary listener and Patreon supporter named Frank, we are going to be adding a new entry to the Omnibus that's kind of an improved version of Private Wojtek. Ask yourself, what if Private Wojtek, A, were a dog, so
right, okay.
Potentially a cuter animal,
yeah.
B, outranked, got his stripes.
Outranked most of his soldiers?
Yeah, what if he were promoted to sergeant?
Doesn't that feel like every dog that lives in a home kind of outranks at least the children?
Yeah, our dogs, our little tiny poodle spaniel mix thinks he's the alpha of the house.
Absolutely.
And gets very grumpy when the bigger dog tries to lie down next to him, or if anybody tries to move him from a warm patch of sunlight.
One of his teeth falls out.
He's lost all his teeth and it is not affected. I mean, he's grumpy about it, but he has never kind of looked in the mirror and thought, you know what? I don't think I run this joint anymore.
Right.
And again, a version of Private Wojtek in Bull Terrier form who is actually good at soldiering.
Does this presage a new theme in Omnibus where you redo my shows, but better?
I've got a list of each one of your shows with notes. Hey, don't blame me. This is from Frank Caruzzi. What's the Italian of U-Z-Z-I? Caruzzi?
Caruzzi.
So it's not... Does that mean Ruth Buzzy is actually pronounced
Boozy.
it's like Bootsy Collins?
Right. Ruth Boozy.
The story of Sergeant Stubby is a World War I tale,
Yes.
so we're not going to cover all the same ground. And it sounds like you're maybe a little bit familiar with this idea of a brave American doughboy who is also a dog.
Yeah. One thing about World War I is depending on how you describe covering ground, if you think covering ground in a war is about a lateral amount of ground.
How much space can you sit a bunch of kids from the mid-Atlantic states?
Yeah, just in a giant...
How much of France?
A line stretching from the English Channel to Switzerland, then yes, it covered a lot of ground. But if advancing or retreating is the ground, really, the whole entire war happened within 150 yards.
I mean, those are different approaches to life. There are some of us who are into advancing and retreating.
Right.
And some of us who are just happy to occupy the most ground we can and have a smoke.
Yeah, sure. Spread out.
You're only going to be in France once, probably. It's like 1917. You haven't traveled much. The story of Stubby begins in Boston. He is a mix, which I think is the nice way to say he's a mutt.
Mm-hmm.
He appears to have quite a bit of Boston Bull Terrier in him. And that would not be surprising. Boston is the birthplace of that particular breed.
But that takes some of the cuteness out because Boston Bull Terriers, I don't know. I'm sure there are futurelings right now.
You're going to piss people off if you insult any breed of dog.
Yeah. Who are like, what are you talking
about?
So
finish your sentence about how you hate Bull Terriers.
Oh, the Bull Terrier is the most beautiful of all animals.
There we go. I mean, I'm a conventional normie with my conventional normie golden retriever.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. I think, just get a one of these genetically engineered corgis or Shibas that look like they're fake, look like they're Japanese robot dogs. Why get a weird Dalmatian with two colored eyes that make it look crazy?
Well, or any of the dogs, including I think a Bull Terrier that seems specifically bred not to be able to breathe.
Yes.
Yeah. Or like German Shepherds that are bred to not be able to walk.
It was a problem with dogs that they were breeding too much. And the American Kennel Club was like, I bet we can do something about this. The problem is that now they all just breathe really noisily and slobberily, like they're dying every second. It's a good reminder of mortality, I guess, to get one of these dogs.
I feel like it more and more all the time.
That's how Grandpa sounded right at the end.
Do their chairs squeak?
We're going to breed a squeakier chair. Nobody knows where, in the manner of many stray dogs, nobody knows where Stubby came from. But I guess he was a regular around Yale's athletic stadium.
Oh, right.
In the middle decades of the 1910s. The middle decades? In the middle years of the 1910s. Teens.
The Yale mascot is a
bulldog. Yeah, and the Bull Terrier is related to the bulldog. So that would be appropriate, He'd have a certain... wait, I made it sound like he was a Boston native. No, his breed is.
Yeah.
But this is all happening in New Haven, Connecticut.
I see. He's a street dog from New Haven, from the rough streets of 1910s.
He has somehow survived. And I guess a campus is a good place to hang out. You got lots of annoying young people in raccoon cats and Stutz bear cats.
Raccoon cats and Stutz bear cats.
So both kinds of cats that there are. Watching bears and Stutz bears. And they'll feed a nice dog. There will be lots of leftover food from the cafeteria, and then eventually from the mess, because when World War I starts, the Connecticut National Guard decides to use Yale's vast athletic grounds, because Yale is such a sports powerhouse, as we know.
Right. Was then, though.
Probably was.
More so then.
I mean, I'm sure to this day, there's nowhere else to go for fencing or what do you think Yale's best sports are?
My uncle was a football star for Yale in the 1940s.
You could still play football at Yale. I mean, Ivy League's got a respectable...
But Yale was Yale was front page of the New York Times, the Yale-Harvard game.
That was the big game.
Yeah, it was one of the major sports events of the country.
Because Alabama and Ohio State had not yet been invented.
Right. They weren't even states yet in 1812.
It was called Alabama Territorial University, and the color crimson didn't exist. They just said kind of go puce tide. So the Connecticut National Guard takes over the area, and Stubby gets his name Stubby because he has a stubby little tail, which would be typical for a Boston Terrier. It's not a great name.
Well, it's like
naming a cat Mr. Whiskers. They all have whiskers.
People used to nickname things and people based on their physical attributes, which we don't do anymore. You wouldn't say like, "Hey, Blondie." I mean, you might. Hey, big ears.
It's a problem. I mean, do people still do it with dogs? Kids will invariably think dogs should be named Blackie or Whitey, and you have to explain we are not naming our dog Blackie or Whitey.
We had a cat named Tippy because she had a tip of white on the tip of her tail.
Oh, that's good.
Tippy.
It's like Tippy Hedren. It's a cat-related name.
Yeah, it was cute. And then we had another cat named Flaky because she was flaky.
Like in personality?
Yeah, mentally
or bits
flaky.
of her were flaking off?
No, she just was a flaky little animal.
Except that's exactly like Mr. Whiskers, because all cats are flaky.
Right.
A young Massachusetts man named James Conroy enlists in the Connecticut National Guard. Is that possible? He's from New England. Just 6 weeks after the war begins.
The war after the United States
after
joins.
Woodrow Wilson enters the war. And then shortly after brought America. He entered the war first.
Right. He marched out carrying our flag.
He personally declared war against the Central Powers. And then shortly thereafter, no, Conroy is not from Massachusetts. He is from New Britain, Connecticut, which sounds like a made-up Connecticut town. I think it's the town from Gilmore Girls.
He was a swamp Yankee.
A swamp Yankee, sure. In fact, they called his whole company, like his whole division was the Yankee division because it was all, these Massachusetts and Connecticut National Guard.
They were the New England Patriots.
They were called the New England Patriots. And he soon becomes fast friends with this dog who's always hanging around the Yale grounds where he's training. And, it's got to be a lonely time, right? Even when you enlist, even when you've signed up for that, it's got to be a lonely time. And it's nice to have a faithful friend. Yeah. And
what they say about psychopaths is that they love kids and dogs.
Is that true?
I think so. Can't relate to people.
But they love kids and dogs.
Kids and dogs.
I would have thought that good-hearted people liked kids and dogs, and psychopaths tormented them.
No, good-hearted people
left pieces of them in alleys.
Good-hearted people rightly hate kids and dogs. It's only sociopaths.
Every second I spend with you, I could not be spending with a fully formed adult with actual free will and an agency.
Right. Those are much too difficult to comprehend.
Got it. And Stubby appears to have, after spending all this time around training camp, he appears to have a knack for military life. He learns all the bugle calls, so he knows when Conroy is going to be where, when soldiers are going to be getting up or heading back to the tent.
Oh, he's a smart dog.
Yeah, there's a Pavlovian, that's how the military operates, on these Pavlovian principles, that if you hear this tune, it'll make you want to wake up. And if you hear this tune, it makes you want to go drill and so forth.
Right.
And obviously, if it can work on enlisted men, it can work on dogs.
Sure.
He learns to march in formation.
I am so into this dog now.
Can all dogs march in formation? That just means they trot along next to a human, which I think I've seen every dog do at Green Lake.
I'm picturing him actually trotting in time.
Yeah. Maybe he would have they're pack animals. Maybe he would have the instinct that humans do.
Left, right, left. Although
his legs are different lengths.
Well, but also dogs don't put both left feet down at once and both right feet down at once. If he did that, I would.
It's true.
I would salute this
I hope
dog.
he corresponds with the front paw.
Yeah, right.
When the drill instructor says left,
he puts the left
front, right rear.
Right rear.
But also his pace is going to be different from ours. He's going to have to maybe take 2 steps,
right?
Which means he's wrong half the time.
Or right half the time because his back leg is in sync.
Conroy even teaches him to salute. That's his big trick. He will kind of get up. He will put both his forelegs in the air. He will put a paw to his forehead and he will hold it there until he is saluted, and then he will drop it.
Wow, I love this dog. Why don't we have these dogs in the Army now?
We should, but really, now that I think about it, it shows that these are actually pretty simple dog tricks.
Yeah.
Right. Walk next to a human, respond to a bell.
Sit up.
Yeah, sit up until you're told to sit down. So really, we're teaching, military men and women are taught to do basic tricks that an obedient dog can do. Yeah,
if you are a brand new enlisted person, you have the intelligence of a raven, somewhere between a raven and a bulldog.
That's what the tests the first tests they give you are meant to establish. Yeah. Do we have a raven or a bulldog?
Can you take? Are you interested in beautiful beads, or will you march in formation?
I thought the raven might be higher, maybe not for military life.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about the intelligence of ravens, given that they're a very common bird in Alaska, and people experiment on them a lot. But then I see them out doing what they're choosing to do, and it's like picking the ground looking for worms. So however smart they are, they haven't turned it into a more interesting vocation.
I just found out that crows commute, which is very disappointing to me.
Absolutely, they do.
But really, you're a bird. You have the freedom of the air. You can design any lifestyle you want, and yet they all leave their flock in the morning, and a pair of them carpools out to the normal place where they're going to eat
worms and garbage,
dead things off the road.
Yeah.
And sandwich wrappers all day.
And then
at dusk they fly back.
The same 3 crows showed up in my yard every morning.
And people don't understand this because they're like, "Oh, there's a couple of crows out today as usual." No, those are the same 2 crows that have chosen you.
And at night they flew with every other crow in the city back to some swamp somewhere.
In North Seattle, they fly to Bothell.
Here they fly to some area in Tukwila.
Yeah, there's
Tukwila,
two.
Renton. Yeah.
There's two. I wonder where the dividing line is, where the North Seattle crows meet.
It's got to be the ship canal.
The South Seattle ones. Yeah, maybe it's just the ship canal. Or I don't know. Is it the Duwamish? Anyway, when Conroy is transferred to a different training, or to Newport News, Virginia, I guess, to complete his final training to head to the European theater, Stubby hops the train with him. And when it's time for him to board the USS Minnesota and head to France, Conroy is able to work out a way to stow away Stubby on board with him. He finds the right sympathetic people on board who will stow Stubby in a coal bin. And once they're at sea, and presumably it's too late to throw him overboard.
Right.
He gets him out and they feed him.
I feel like from time to time, the U.S. military adopts a much more whimsical attitude. And then other times it has to tighten up, straighten up and fly right. But in the 70s, it felt like everybody in the Army had a mustache.
Yeah, I feel like it's all that straighten up and fly right stuff is just, it's cosplay, basically. Like, we have to pretend that we're very serious, and you have to do hospital corners on your cot, and why is your locker 1 inch out of alignment, private, but that's just, to get him in shape. And then once you're actually over there, you can listen to Fortunate Son and smoke weed.
Right. Oh, well, that was what they used to do. Now I think they listen to either Limp Bizkit or
Still Limp Bizkit, you think?
Probably not.
Today's more sensitive. U.S. Army is listening to Tame Impala.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
In Iraq.
Every once in a while, I get a letter from somebody, someone overseas that's like, "I love your music. It really helps me here in Afghanistan." But they're always they're always a lieutenant sitting alone in their tent, can't hang with any of the other soldiers.
That's what Indie Rock is for.
That's right. One
guy alone in a room, feeling like nobody gets him. The Minnesota arrives in France. James Conroy and therefore Stubby are now part of the 102nd Infantry. And I guess his new commanding officer sees Stubby. And there's a moment where he's on the fence as to whether his unit is going to have a mascot or not. And then, pivotally, Stubby salutes.
Oh, of course he does.
And the CO is charmed for life. And suddenly, Stubby is now the mascot of the 102nd Infantry. At first, mostly just headquarters company, because that's where Conroy is detached. He must be he's an Ivy League man or something.
Yeah, right. He's a stenographer.
He's intelligence for the 102nd Infantry. But in 1918, their CEO is replaced in short order by Colonel Machine Gun Parker.
There he comes.
Who is not named for his rat-a-tat delivery, but apparently because he's very good at firing machine guns at things. Oh. This was back when you could get a nickname like Machine Gun for being very good with a machine gun.
Kind of like being called Whiskers.
Yeah, exactly. He and Stubby have the same vibe.
But he's a colonel, so he must have really worked his way up the ranks.
Yeah, in what war is he firing a machine gun?
Well, machine guns aren't that... I mean, machine guns hadn't been in the Army for very long at that point.
Is it possible that he was in the Spanish-American War?
Maybe.
Firing machine guns in Cuba? I don't know. Suddenly I want to get to the bottom of this. And he also takes a shine to Stubby. And so Stubby now is the mascot of the whole regiment.
Oh, yeah.
And when Conroy moves from headquarters to the trenches of northeast France, Stubby, where, as we've mentioned, there's a long multi-year stalemate going on.
Yeah.
Stubby adapts quite well to the trenches. You know, he's got his pack, and they all love him and give him pets and scrats because trench life is so terrible.
Well, and aren't those dogs bred as ratters? I mean, aren't they meant to be down in muddy trenches?
So even though it was rare for this particular infantry regiment to smuggle over a dog, it was very common to adopt local dogs in the trenches.
Right.
They would do lots of different kinds of jobs. They could pull carts. You mentioned, I think that's something that even Vostek could do.
Yeah.
could deliver messages, and they would rat.
Right.
The record is silent as to whether Stubby would actually eat the rats he found, but he was an energetic shaker of rats, which my dog will do. I have a little, our little spaniel mix will just take his toy and go, right. And he's just got this instinctive.
Let me break this thing's neck.
Yeah. If this thing had a neck, if this stuffed trout from Mud Bay Pet Supplies had a neck, I would break it.
You think of war dogs as being shepherds, and the Belgian shepherd is one of the great shepherds. But yeah,
all-time greatest shepherds.
You know what? In top 4 shepherds,
I go German, Australian, Belgian, Sybil. So they were used on the other side as well.
Oh, right. Right. The Germans have their namesake shepherds.
I mean, famously, the most famous dog in America was a rescued German shepherd from the trenches, right? Rin Tin Tin was brought home as a puppy, I think. And I think he was maybe on the other side. Do you think Rin Tin Tin was under deep cover?
Like a captured dog?
POW? I think he was a double agent. I think the whole time he was spying on Hollywood for what was left of the, for his Central European overlords.
So the Iditarod race that made Balto the dog the most famous dog in America.
This is the actual original vaccine run?
Yeah, the vaccine run. So it wasn't the Iditarod, but it was...
Oh, you're mad that I called Rin Tin Tin the most famous dog in America when you have an Alaskan.
I was like, what about Balto? But that didn't happen until 1925. So Rin Tin Tin, I'll allow it.
And even once Balto captures the headlines, I mean...
It's pretty brief.
Yeah, Balto goes viral. But I mean, Rin Tin Tin is making, he's selling more tickets than Mary Pickford.
Even though there were like 7 Rin Tin Tins. Yes. There was Rin Tin Tin and then the new Rin Tin Tin.
The 7 Rins Tin Tin.
Rin Tin Tin 3.
I don't even know. Yeah, I guess they were actually maybe Rin Tin Tin's puppies. I think it was related. At least in the family. Lassie's the fraud.
Right. Rin Tin Tin.
Yes, they were Rin
Tin Tin.
The Rin Tin Tin.
Electric Boogaloo.
Stubby does not mind the trenches. He will cuddle up with sleeping soldiers to, comfort the doughboys in faraway France. He will stand with sentries on guard. Again, I don't want to overemphasize his importance to the war effort because, he's just sitting next to someone.
Sure, he's doing dog things.
But it's, we don't know what would have happened in the alternate universe where Stubby gets hit by a streetcar.
Right.
Maybe the Allies lose the war.
Sure. The butterfly flaps its wings and the Kaiser rules the world. Accounts vary of how he responded to artillery. But because, of course, if you've had a dog, America used to love fireworks. And then roughly 10 years ago, we all decided to stop having children and get dogs. And now America hates fireworks. Every New Year's Eve or patriotic holiday, social media just fills up with people complaining about fireworks because their dog is under the bed. It's just social media that hates fireworks.
Well, these are the people that have dogs instead of friends.
Right. Exactly.
No.
No.
Any people who are dog owners have always known that dogs do not like thunder and other big booming sounds.
Right.
And in some accounts, Stubby is very brave in the face of the many different the different noises of the Germans shelling you. With different kinds of things. You got your Piccolo Pete's, you got your Catherine wheels, but in other accounts, he's very brave and doesn't even flinch. So there may be some myth making here, but whatever the case, he gets used to his new environment. He doesn't love it, but he's still loyal to the boys of the Yankee division.
You can train a horse to not flinch when you fire a gun right over its head.
You sound like you have firsthand experience here. Speaking of psychopaths who love dogs and children, he actually is. This is a little more impressive than sitting next to someone. Because he's got a keen sense of smell. Sometimes he can predict shells before others can hear them, and he can smell gas before others can hear them.
He's the bulldog in the coal mine.
He is, yeah, exactly. As the saying goes, he has issued his own gas mask, and at one point he actually, he spots a sleeping soldier in a dugout during a gas attack, and and reaches them and wakes them up at the same time as the gas does, and they get their masks on. And the soldier later writes a poem about Stubby saving his life, in which one verse goes, "He always knew when to duck the shells and buried his nose at the first gas smells."
Was it E.E. Cummings?
And that young man turned out to be Siegfried Sassoon. I think it's got some capital letters here, so it's probably not E.E. Cummings. Yeah. Other units did have mascots at this time. One unit somehow got a white goat over from the States.
Not a Belgian goat.
No, they brought a homegrown American goat named Mademoiselle Fanny to France.
Wait a minute. I think of the name Fanny as being associated with goats.
Did you know a goat named Fanny?
I feel like Fanny is a common name for goats. Could that be?
Maybe.
Could Fanny have already been a common name for goats in 1917?
It's either way is possible, because Mademoiselle Fanny did make the papers as, look at our boys over there. These ones have a goat.
Right.
For in some way, one division, I think, even acquired a pair of lion cubs, which makes you wonder, I guess it's got to be some kind of itinerant circus.
Yeah, or a zoo got blown up and they rescued the cubs.
Right. But you don't want lion cubs. That's not going to end well in a couple of years. On April 20th, 1918, the stalemate ends, and this is a German offensive, I guess, in April of 1918 near the French town of Seicheprey.
Mm-hmm.
And Colonel Parker orders everyone from headquarters company, the Conroy's still at headquarters. So he's occasionally, shuttled up to take his turn at the front, bringing Stubby with him. But Stubby also spends a lot of time, back at headquarters eating treats. And, occasionally they get to tour Paris or Normandy or the south of France or whatever.
Right. They sing for the troops. But
at this particular time of this German push, Conroy and Stubby are in the trenches. And at one point, the German assault fails and they begin to retreat. And Stubby can tell that the field has been vacated. At this point, by the way, he's very good at identifying German soldiers. He barks at the Pickelhaube, or whatever you call the helmet with the spike on top. Mm-hmm. So it's like the equivalent of having like the really racist dog that'll just growl at people of color. Right. Except here it comes in handy. He recognizes the helmet, and he's good for keeping POWs in line.
Growls at the Hun.
Is that an acceptable form of discrimination?
I'm not sure. Well, yeah. I think you can be discriminating against Germans.
Against the Hun.
I mean, we certainly are on this show. Not as much as the Dutch, of course, but.
So he's a canny soldier in that regard, but he can tell that the German assault has ended, and he ventures out on the battlefield, but then a shell explodes near him, and he is actually wounded in battle. Shrapnel strikes him in under his left leg, and he has to be ambulanced out. Conroy crawls from his trench to rescue Stubby, gets him in an ambulance. Maybe that's E.E. Cummings driving him back.
No.
Behind the lines.
The ambulance driver was Hemingway.
It was Walt Disney, and that's what inspired him to make Lady and the Tramp. Mm-hmm. And so for 6 weeks, it's a little bit touch and go, but Stubby recovers and recuperates and returns to the 102nd 6 weeks later after having made a complete recovery.
With a Purple Heart pinned to his chest.
Well, that's interesting. He does begin to receive commendations at this point. Now, they're mostly made up. He's actually doing real military work, keeping the POWs in line. He'll lead medics to the wounded in some cases.
Oh, cool.
Because dogs have that kind of instinct. A member of my pack is in trouble. I'm going to go, Timmy's in a well kind of thing.
Right. I'm going to bark at his cancer.
So exactly. So he brings, medics with stretchers to, but later that year in 1918, after the 102nd, I think, liberates the French town of Chateau-Thierry, the grateful residents make him a uniform.
Uh-huh.
So he wears this kind of chamois leather vest. And I guess there was a tradition of French towns kind of striking medals also for the liberating forces. So so he wears he's starting to wear decorations.
Yeah, I'm picturing like a Spanky and Our Gang kind of war medal made out of a dog food can lid and a ribbon.
I don't know if this counts as stolen valor, because none of these are real awards that he's receiving.
Well, but they were awarded.
Somebody awarded them.
Yeah, so a
French town.
It's not stolen valor because he's plausibly in the dark.
He thought it was legit.
Yeah.
And it's not like, and they did better than, Chewbacca doesn't even get a medal at the end of Star Wars. So the French are much more open-minded than the Rebel Alliance, I guess.
What are some of the medals? What is he awarded medals for?
Well, the pictures of him are very cute, first of all, because everybody likes a dog wearing clothes.
Oh, I do like that.
I don't know if I would pick a World War I military uniform as the cutest thing to put in a dog. I kind of like maybe a bandana.
The fact that it's made of leather kind of has a Hannibal Lecter.
It's not dog leather. Wait, maybe it is in World War I France. There's really no way to know. At this time, the war is wrapping up. Stubby and Conroy's division gets sent to the front for the Meuse-Argonne campaign, which effectively, is what ends the war, but not as quickly as anybody was hoping. You're asking what kind of decorations Stubby receives. His unit captures so many German soldiers that Stubby gets the Iron Cross.
Oh, they take an Iron Cross off a guy and give it to Stubby.
No, the Germans awarded him the Iron Cross. No, yes, you're right. I guess this was common practice. Like a really hoped for souvenir was to take a POW with the Iron Cross and bring home one of the Kaiser's own decorations.
Right.
And Stubby was awarded one. So he wore an Iron Cross on his uniform. After his heroism in the Meuse-Argonne campaign, a lot of the myth-making about him says that this is when he is actually promoted to sergeant. But there are no photos of him at this time with any stripes on his little jacket thingy.
Yeah.
So this is probably just stories that get passed around. Other newspaper accounts say that he was responsible for the Christmas truces, both sides of the lines admiring this cute dog. And so
that's what got them out playing tennis in the
playing
no man's land,
badminton and snowball fights and Christmas carols. And this did not actually happen. That happened years before.
Right.
Stubby was in the war.
Oh, right. That was the first year of the war.
Yeah, it was. There were no Americans at the Christmas truce. So a lot of this stuff is made up. So even if he doesn't have a sergeant stripes, he does have an Iron Cross, which is pretty good. And then as different towns get liberated, they strike all these medals. So he winds up with like on the order of 16 to 18 little medals for the town of this and the town of that.
That's great.
As he worked his way across France.
I've been trying to become a Kentucky colonel for many years, but I feel like Sergeant Stubby, I mean, even as a Kentucky colonel, I don't think I'd get 16 medals.
Well, follow the example of how Stubby got the Iron Cross. You just need to take an existing Kentucky colonel prisoner.
Right, or several.
So if you want your choice of medals. On November 1st, 1918. Oh, sorry, November 2nd, 1918. So spoilers.
Oh, no, that's key.
The very end of the war. Conroy and Stubby both suffer a gas attack.
Oh no!
And are wounded.
They were still gassing as late as November 2nd?
9 days before the end of the war.
Whoa.
You really got to admire these can-do Germans. But when the armistice begins, there's a huge celebration in the lines. Of course, Conroy and Stubby have both recovered from the gas they breathed. And hundreds gather around Stubby and give him credit. A mascot for a unit is good luck.
Yeah, right.
So at this point, he's getting all the credit for winning the war, even if his tasks mostly included standing next to people and barking helpfully.
So does Stubby then begin a political career by giving a impassioned speech at a beer hall?
Stubby met 3 U.S. presidents. You're joking about his political career, but he met as many presidents as Forrest Gump, I think.
Wow. So Wilson.
Yeah. So he meets Wilson a month later. Wilson comes over for a Christmas Day visit to the troops. And we say, of course, now you could, President Biden hops on an airplane and he's carving turkey in Basra,
right. Peshawar.
8 hours later. Back then, it probably took him a few weeks
Wilson
to get to the front lines.
He was coming to collect his accolades as the man who had brought a new peace to the world.
Sure, and as the first American to have declared war, before even he got the army involved.
But then do Coolidge and Hoover also get in on the act?
He later meets Harding and Coolidge. Harding famously an animal fan. He had all the pets.
Oh, yeah.
And because this is what happens. Even after the war, Stubby, there have already been newspaper articles about, look at these pictures of our fighting men with this cute bull terrier. But now now he's a genuine celebrity. I mean, he doesn't get home right away. He and Conroy go see Paris in March of 1919, and immediately, what's the must-do thing in 1919? Immediately catches Spanish flu.
The dog doesn't, though.
The dog doesn't. Conroy does. Conroy's laid up and misses most of his leave. But luckily, he recovers. He returns to the States. This time he doesn't have to sneak the dog on. Stubby boards the Agamemnon to great fanfare.
Sits at the captain's
and
table.
He marches in the parade upon return. And as all the men of his division do the eyes right toward the officers on the viewing stand. The accounts say that Stubby did as well, which is a normal dog reflex. You see where your master is looking and you look as well, but
pretty good.
It really impressed the brass.
Right.
I'll tell you that.
All the more confetti thrown down.
And then even before, and by the way, he got lucky. I was reading that the French also had a whole canine corps of domestic dogs that they were using for various duties. After the war, they put them all down.
Oh!
Every single one.
With a bullet to the forehead.
I can only, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe you poisoned some hamburger.
Well, why wouldn't they adopt them out?
Isn't that awful? I think the idea was they would not adapt to civilian life. These dogs all had shell shock or trench foot or
right.
Whatever.
They would viciously attack any German that they met.
They see somebody gets a kid gets a top knot that looks a little too much like a pickelhaube or whatever, and suddenly the dog's on the little girl's throat. I don't know.
Top knot's very popular in post-war France.
Oh, what if you ran into Pebbles or Bam Bam from the Flintstones?
Yeah, but never do.
Luckily, and some U.S. pets coming back were thrown overboard by, again, the military deciding it's gonna play rough. Yeah, you got some dachshund that followed you all the way through the forests of France, and then you get some idiot staff sergeant on, or I guess it'll be a Navy officer maybe on the boat.
Yeah, get this out of here.
Tosses your dachshund overboard. Hey, that was our dachshund.
I suppose if your regimental mascot was a halibut, it would be doing it a favor.
Yes, you'd be like, hey, you guys, this halibut has not breathed in 3 years.
This halibut saved us multiple times. Let's return it to its...
It's been holding its breath since 1916. But Stubby, by virtue of being a celebrity and wearing cute clothes and having an Iron Cross, for crying out loud, escapes this fate and becomes, as you would in 1919, becomes a vaudeville star when he returns to the States.
Oh, does a tour.
Yeah, he tours. He's not the most famous dog in the American Army, say the headline. So he's a big draw.
Right.
You go to see the plate spinners and the lasso twirlers.
And then the saluting dog.
And then the Stubby comes out and salutes. That's a pretty good celebrity. Conroy keeps him as his master after the war. Conroy goes to law school, as one does.
Yes.
Coming back from over there at Georgetown University. And at the time, the Georgetown athletic squads are called the Hilltoppers. They are not yet the Hoyas, that kind of odd, Greek or Latin term. But I mean, to this day,
I guess Georgetown is
to this day, the Hoyas mascot is still a bulldog. Mm-hmm. And so once again, Stubby gets lucky and he becomes the halftime mascot for the
runs out on the field.
Georgetown football team. Yeah. And is even in some, I don't know if this is true, but in some accounts is credited as kind of inventing the halftime show, inventing the idea that college football should have cavorting mascots at halftime.
Runs out, salutes, the crowd goes wild.
And at this time he becomes, once you've done your vaudeville tour, you need endorsements, luckily.
So he invents those too?
He invents endorsements. He becomes the spokesperson, the spokes terrier for the what is becoming the American Humane Association.
Oh, not Quaker Oats, but something related to being a dog.
Yeah, and this was probably the dawning of an idea that you can't just kick your dog or leave it in a freezing shed all night.
growing up in Alaska in the 70s, it had not yet gotten there.
It hadn't gotten there. I guess the American Humane Association was founded in 1877, but it was probably thought of as maybe kind of an oddity like vegetarianism. Oh, what? We're going to be nice to animals? Come on.
Right.
But it was gradually gaining speed in the early 20th century, and a famous patriotic face like Stubby was perfect for that. So he would march in parades with the president's dogs. This is how he met Harding. This is a good uncontroversial stance for an unpopular president to take, that we should all pet our dogs more.
And he was presumably wearing a sandwich board that said support the Humane Society.
Yes, and also wearing a new gold medal that General Blackjack Pershing himself pinned onto his wartime jacket, or a facsimile thereof, for publicity reasons. This was a medal that the American Humane Association had invented, like bestest boy or
best in show.
Yeah, except it wasn't best in show. It was, the Bravery for Dogs Valor Award or something. And for a photo op, they got Pershing to pin it on.
Do they still hand that award out?
I think maybe it was given once. What if every year it's just been given to a less brave dog?
Or a more brave dog, but less famous.
Right. That's the thing. I mean, today, I'm sure Army canine divisions are doing real kinds of drug sniffing stuff.
I meet brave dogs every time I go through an airport.
And they're designed to look cute. They always pick the dogs with the floppy ears and tails because they don't want people to get nervous about seeing a German Shepherd at the airport.
Right, sniffing their suitcase.
That's why they're always cutie pies, to put you off guard and think, oh, well, this cute dog won't smell my weed.
Right.
He also becomes a face of veterans organizations. This is when the American Legion is in its ascendancy, because there were a lot of veterans who,
needed a place to drink.
Yeah, messed up by the war and or missing colleagues from the war. And that kind of became a center of American social life.
Right.
For men of a certain age. And Stubby was there at their parades and pancake breakfasts and whatever else they'd had.
I mean, dogs don't have that long of a lifespan. How long did this persist?
It's tricky. Nobody knows how old Stubby was, because he just kind of appeared fully formed, picking bones out from behind the Yale cafeteria or whatever.
Skull and bones.
He actually stole Andrew Jackson's skull, or Pocahontas's skull, or whatever it is. He died on March 16th, 1926. Believed to be about 12 years old. We assume that maybe he was about, what would that make him, 4 or 5 when he first attached himself to Conroy. And Conroy really took it hard.
It was his meal ticket, for one.
I kind of wonder how much there is of that. I think it's
like a headless chicken.
If you asked Conroy, I'm sure he would say that it was, the companionship that got him through the war, and even worse, law school.
Yeah. But all dog owners will tell you, I mean, we'll sympathize with Conroy, right? He's lost his best friend.
I mean, my dog never made me a penny, and in fact, is quite expensive.
Right. And I don't think you would actually cry if your dog's shuffled off this mortal coil.
Our little poodle terrier, who's extremely persnickety, I feel like I love him, but I feel like we could do better.
Yeah. Would you ring a bell 3 times?
But we also have an extraordinarily cute mini golden, who is just an unimpeachable dog.
Yeah, although not the sharpest tack in the bulletin board.
No, we haven't taught her to salute or retrieve wounded men from the front lines,
or obey any commands, as far as I can tell.
Kate's been working on her. She'll sit and she'll stay.
Okay.
And she'll lie down, but I think that's mostly like lowering your hand to a level where to keep looking at it, she would have to lie down. But there's a lot of that in dog training. Conroy, but when my dogs go, I am happy to have the vet make whatever arrangements necessary. Conroy, in fact, feels that Sergeant Stubby should be in a museum.
Oh, he doesn't taxidermy Sergeant Stubby.
He does.
Oh, wow.
He wants Sergeant Stubby in the Smithsonian. And at this point, there's only one path to that, and that is taxidermy.
I wonder how many futurelings are listening to this episode, gazing lovingly across their living room at their own taxidermied pet.
No, at a taxidermied human from our era.
Oh, sure.
It's from those weird Chinese bodies in motion exhibits where they got Uyghur corpses through means you don't want to know about.
Every future
and made them play table tennis.
Will have a pet or a formerly a pet human that's now encased in lucite.
I think it's just a human they found in the wreckage, preserved from all the lecithin and Gatorade we put in our bodies.
Oh, right.
No, this is still done today. Sometimes a very attached pet owner will want to keep Rover on the hearth.
Yes.
But less so. Have you ever met? I don't think I've ever met anyone who's done this.
No, I do know people that have like taxidermied squirrels and stuff because it was a thing in alternative culture.
Because they bought one at a
thrift
Goodwill
store. Yeah, but I mean that meant that it was originally done as because they're often in little dioramas.
It was a mid-century hobby and not not a suspect one. It was really like, this is what scientists do.
Yeah. I wonder, when we see a taxidermied animal, we have no idea what they looked like in life. So we can't tell if the taxidermy actually resembles them. Like you could.
But this is true of almost all portraiture. If I look at a John Singer Sargent portrait, I'm like, oh, maybe that does look like the Duchess of whatever. I have no idea.
Right, or maybe not. But I mean, if it was a pet that you knew really well, and the taxidermist stretched its little face,
gets the expression just wrong.
Yeah, it's like that's not her smile.
And then maybe you put a bandana over the dog's face. I don't think I would do it.
Mm-mm.
But people were less squeamish, I guess, about death in general, and maybe about dead animals on wooden. Scale. I don't even. What is the armature of a taxidermy animal even made out of?
I don't know. Bakelite back then? I'm not sure.
Where would you get a Bakelite squirrel shaped? Got to send away for one. That's how Popular Mechanics started. It was all people sending away for squirrel shaped lumps of plastic for their taxidermy shops.
Did the Smithsonian accept this inheritance?
Not at first. Conroy had to settle for some kind of Red Cross museum of World War I memorabilia.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, I guess, there was a fire in his Washington, D.C. high-rise apartment, and he had to escape with his taxidermied, he had to save his taxidermied Stubby from the fire. That was Stubby's last great hair-raising escape, was posthumous.
Right. Literally hair-raising.
But in the 1950s, his hair had already been raised once. In the 1950s, Conroy was able to lobby the Smithsonian to accept Sergeant Stubby's mounted remains. And I don't know if he's on display today. People maybe don't have a lot of appetite for seeing mounted pets.
Well, it also seems like there aren't a lot of school kids clamoring to see World War I's most famous enlisted dog.
The Forgotten War. That's what I call it. It was forgotten like when the last World War I veteran died in 2000.
Yeah, right. 1995, something like that.
You think?
I mean, how old would you be?
That's true. The youngest would have had to have been born around 1900, even if they lied about their age to get in.
Yeah.
So it would have started with a 2.
Yeah, right. I guess so.
It was probably on 9/11. Let's just say the last World War I veteran died on 9/11.
Out of shock. Of
patriotism and a broken heart. But you can see pictures of Stubby with all his various French medallions on the Smithsonian website. The taxidermy is maybe holding up a little better than the vest. But he's now a proud part of our national heritage, and I think a better mascot than the Poles. The whole reason I did this show was just to plump for my choice of military mascot. Our best one is better than the best Polish one.
Well, I have to say that.
Have I convinced you?
I have to say that he has an illustrious career. He certainly predated Wojtek. But
do you feel like Wojtek maybe was inspired by him? You think when they asked Wojtek, when Mark Maron was like, Wojtek, who are your guys? He said, Sergeant Stubby. Yeah,
I mean, Wojtek was a bear. I feel like that really trumps a dog. No, I don't know. I mean, think about how much you have to feed a bear.
Yeah, but he has all the advantages of being a giant animal. Stubby was a stubby little dog facing the same dangerous conditions, but without all the gifts that God gives a bear.
Oh, I suppose. Turns out the last World War I
we have underdogs, not under bears.
Under bears.
You actually looked this up.
Yeah, last World War I veterans, there were 3 of them that all died in 2009.
Wow.
So they made it not to 9/11. Past 9/11. They made it
8 years passed.
Yeah, all the way. I mean, all the way.
And then in 2009, they were all in the same car driving to Dairy Queen, and they got hit by a semi.
There was a bottle of brandy that they were all going to open, and then on the way to the brandy, they died.
It was some kind of tontine where one of them was going to inherit some German jewels,
right?
And one of them poisoned the other 2, but accidentally.
Right.
Licked all his fingers after pouring out the wine.
He cut his hair to buy leg braces for the other 2, but they had cut off their legs to buy a comb.
2008? Is that
2009? 3 years after the last Long Winters record came out.
Do you think it was Obama becoming president that killed them?
They killed them.
It was the shock of a person of color being president.
None of them were Americans.
Oh.
I think they were in the Royal Navy.
This was some country where 8-year-olds could fight in the war.
Yes.
They had an advantage.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's an asterisk for sure.
And that concludes Stubby, Sergeant Stubby.
Is this a funny Hanna-Barbera voice you do now?
That concludes Sergeant Stubby. Entry 1136.PS1848, certificate number 25161 in the omnibus.
By the way, this is the noise of me looking at the mail. Something either broke in transit or has multiple parts.
We have not done a recording for a couple of weeks, and we have
long holiday break.
Oh, and also you were gone doing Jeopardy, so it's been over a month, right?
When did we do a show? November?
Yeah, so it's the mail has really stacked up here.
It's maybe too much mail. I don't know what we're gonna do. The last half hour of the show is me gonna be opening boxes.
All right, you open that box while I do the outro.
Fair enough.
Futurelings, I cannot endorse social media highly enough. It really is its own reward, and I hope that all of you enjoy social media as much as I do. You can find at Omnibus Project and at Ken Jennings on Twitter. You will not find at John Roderick, but you can hold at John Roderick's Twitter in your memories.
I'm just talking about Jeopardy like a good citizen.
That's right. Ken is now 100% in the pocket of Big Jeopardy.
Game show content, the best kind.
At Ken Jennings there, and Instagram, I also have somewhat of a dormant account there, at John Roderick, but it's now been made private, so you would have to already have followed it, so I'm going to excise that from the outro too. But you can email us, and by all means do, at theomnibusproject@gmail.com. Please support the show at patreon.com/omnibusproject. We thrive on your subscriptions. And
that makes it sound like some kind of weird vampires. We thrive on them.
We thrive.
We've been growing large and fat.
We are large and fat. I am, at least.
On your donations.
You're the same size.
I'm a little fatter. That's mostly a Christmas issue.
But we are like supported. We are member driven, and there are lots of great tiers and rewards for your membership. And that's patreon.com/omnibusproject.
Including a bonus episode, or at the lowest level, you get a new omnibus every month that no one else gets.
Oh, that's right. Our special addenda episode.
And at one of the higher levels, you can call us up and say, hey, Ken, you should do a show about Sergeant Stubby. And I have, constitutionally, by law, I have to say yes.
This past weekend, we talked to 2 different omnibus subscribers via Zoom. And they were extremely enjoyable phone calls.
They were also gifted and interesting. It made me wonder why they listened to this.
Yeah, one of them was a NASA rocket scientist, and the other was I think more normally an IT person, but both fascinating conversationalists. So anyway, that is laying in wait. We also will send you our show notes, the actual show notes that we scribbled on the back of a power bill.
This one is on the back of a Sousa March.
Oh, why did you have the sheet music for a Sousa march?
Well, I'm just home with my trombone researching omnibus. This has got to be my son. My son will print things out on the printer in my office and then forget about them. My whole family does this. I come home and there will be like a recipe my wife printed, some art project my daughter printed, Sousa march my son printed, and none of them apparently care to recover the paper. They just wanted the fun of printing them.
It's like putting an article you mean to read over on Instapaper, and then you never go there.
Exactly right.
Having printed it, they feel like they already have learned it. One of our more active social media fan groups is on Facebook, the Riseable social media content factory. That is the Futurelings on Facebook, but there are also Futurelings groups on Reddit and Discord and
I am given to understand
many other places. And you can send us actual mail that Ken is now unwrapping at P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington 98155. What do you got there, Ken?
We have what's the name on this?
That seems like a very large box for to contain only a postcard.
A. Ellison sent us from Michigan. I know it's from Michigan because there's actually a Myers paper shopping bag. If you're a fan of local supermarkets, please accept this gift of flotsam and jetsam from around my house. So now people are just sending us stuff instead of taking it to Value Village.
I've been getting this too. I got a bag the other day in the mail that was like a rock and an arrowhead, and it just seemed like the person swept everything off of a shelf.
But this is very omnibus-y stuff. There's 2 10 rupee notes from India.
Oh.
So, the treasures of the East.
Right, one each.
2 mail truck, like little Hot Wheel size things, officially licensed by the United States Postal Service.
Those are actually pretty rad.
Probably the only things keeping the post office solvent.
Are you going to keep
there sales of mail trucks to Futurelings fans?
In its original packaging?
No, I'm going to zoom it around and make mail truck noises.
Yeah, me too.
Are you going to keep yours mint in box?
No.
2 Rock'em Sock'em robots.
Look at those.
I mean, it's sans board, but you can still make them fight with the little levers on their back.
Yeah. One is red and one is blue. Which are you?
I am from a blue state, so I will go blue, and you are from Alaska, so you get the red one.
Okay. Fair enough.
You can see Russia from your house. You get the red one.
I love that this correspondent has thoughtfully given 2 of each.
And 4 of these things, legs for Table Unlimited, of what appears to be a very antique package of easy to assemble but self-contained table legs.
Well, now this is a thing where giving 2 each is a little bit of that's a little gaslighty.
Well, we share this table here. We could put all 4 of them on this table.
If this table was 6 inches high, how different would this show be?
But we just sit Japanese style, and it'd probably be more contemplative, peaceful. I'm imagining like kind of a static Ozu shot of us at this little table.
Yeah, crisscross applesauce.
Exactly. What are these? As maybe you're a bit more of a handyman than I am, John. Why would you have little tiny 8-inch tapered table legs in a package?
Well, looking at the logo, looking at the way the packaging is designed, I'm going to say that those table legs and the shape of them, they represent a mid-century modern style.
They do.
Of very low coffee table. So this would allow you to take a piece of wood, like a live edge piece of wood, and turn it into a coffee table.
But here's the problem. The pictures on the back show tables of varying heights, some of which appear to be non-coffee table height. Are you supposed to stick these on the ends of other longer legs?
I feel like the Emco company is advertising the different sizes of legs.
Oh, you think maybe they also sell those?
These are super short legs, though. So you would have to have a low couch.
Here are the 3 best things about about Legs Unlimited. Oh no, you're right. Here's all the things they sell: tapered wood legs, early American legs, hubba. John Adams in stockings. Traditional square legs, hairpin legs. Table tennis legs. This is like red pistachio nut.
I feel like hairpin legs are made of steel.
Banquet table legs.
Yep.
Well, what are table tennis legs made of? What distinguishes a table tennis leg from other legs?
Well, it's very tall.
Oh, is it just height? Picnic table frames, hardware specialties. Come on, that just covers all of this.
Right.
And leg braces, like maybe for human legs?
No.
Why does it say leg braces then?
If you had a coffee table with a broken leg.
I think maybe the same company made both table legs and human prosthetics.
Emco.
Emco did it all.
Something to look up.
And here are the 3 best things about Emco. Number 1, it's easy.
Emco is easy.
Number 2, it's fun.
Emco is fun.
Is it really fun to have to put legs on a table?
I think if you had a thing and you were like, oh, this would be cool if it was a table, and then you found Emco Legs Unlimited.
Make anything into a table.
And you were like, I made it into a table. How fun.
Put a leg on it. Also, and the third thing, saves money too.
Well, you don't have to buy a table if you make one.
We can't afford not to make a table.
I mean, I'm looking around this room and thinking of all the things I could put 4 legs on.
Yeah, what do you have? Your synthesizer, maybe?
Yep, we could turn one of those guitars into a very small and awkward table.
It could be, you could do like the sitting down steel guitar thing on it without it would have its own legs.
Right. What if I put 4 legs on this coffee cup and just stood it about that high?
He also sent 2 mystery yellow pieces of plastic, which I cannot identify.
I love this. Let me see those.
I would like to try to figure out what it is. Nice catch.
Nice throw. This belongs to something.
A board game?
It's
Mattel. Oh, it's a stand.
2017.
I have solved the mystery.
Oh, they're Rock'em Sock'em
They are the stands for the Rock'em Sock'em robots.
Well done.
Look
Well
at
done.
that. Thank you so much, A. Ellison. And Gregory sent me a stuffed goat.
Oh, because you're the greatest of all time.
Isn't it just awful that people will send me a stuffed goat and it'll take me a second to be like, oh, right. Because a stranger sent me a goat because I'm the greatest of all time.
But we came up in a time when being the goat still
it was
almost meant, I mean, like
Charlie Brown was the goat.
Yeah. In 1920, it really symbolized being the loser. But by the 80s and 90s, well, it appeared in the movie The Natural, right? He was about to be the goat before he hit the big grand slam.
And kids loved The Natural.
Right. Favorite movie.
You know you're an 80s kid if you just wore out your VHS tape of Robert Redford in The Natural.
I have seen The Natural 40 times.
It used to be on cable a lot.
Yeah, that's why.
The goat comes from a company called You Goat Mail, which I guess has told us there is a mail order company that just exists to send goats to people.
You Goat Mail is such a Ken Jennings level of pun that I feel like that's the real gift to you.
Thank you, Gregory. Who do you think? What is this service for? Where you mail goats to people? I mean, in ancient times, it would be a tribute. You idolize someone, you bring them a goat.
Sure, cut the goat off that. Cut the head off that goat, and I bet it's full of gold.
It's who do you send these? Maybe John Darnielle gets a bunch of these.
Are you going to put that in your trophy case? Your trophy case is really a marvel.
It's not much of a trophy case. It does have a key to the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan.
It does. You've been
and a couple crossword tournament trophies.
You've been awarded a few kind of interesting awards, and all from like the mayor of South Bend, Indiana.
And I think I will not be able to add a Grammy to it. I can't remember when the awards are. Maybe by the time this airs, people will already know I'm a non-Grammy winner. But because you were nominated this year. Oh, sure. Yeah. For narrating Alex's audiobook.
Right.
Yeah. It's I'll put this in my Jeopardy trophy.
Good.
Why not?
Yeah.
Thank you, Gregory. I appreciate it. Is that all your part of the outro?
I've read it all.
That means I have to know what comes next?
You have to know what comes next.
You'd think I would at this point.
From our vantage point is how it begins.
Futurelings, from our vantage point here in your distant past. The email finally came up. We have no idea how long. I was off book for a second. We have no idea how long our civilization survived. We hope and pray that the catastrophe we fear may never come. If the worst comes soon, this recording, like all the recordings in this series, may be our final word. But if Providence allows, we hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.